Welcome to the Mr. Beacon podcast, the only podcast focusing on architecting ambient IoT solutions, your survival guide in an emerging area that's got a lot more attention since Walmart announced their deployment of ambient IoT in all of their stores. So if you found us because you read the interviews in the Financial Times and all the press coverage, welcome. We've got about 10 years of episodes for you to catch up on. So there's a ton of stuff that is really the history, the foundations, the underpinning of this thing that's going to change the way we connect everyday things to the internet and to artificial intelligence. So ambient IoT isn't just about battery-free Bluetooth. It's essentially any low-cost way of connecting the many things that surround us to the many radios that surround us, such that we can connect the internet to the physical world. And one key technology which we haven't covered much so far until this week is harvesting energy from kinetic movement. And we have an expert in that field, Larry Richenstein, who is the founder and CEO of WePower. Now, Larry is a fascinating guy. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's a storyteller. He made a lot of money from businesses that were in the consumer electronics space. In fact, he's got a number of important roles in the Consumer Technology Association, which is the organization behind CES, which is one of the biggest trade shows in the world. He was an angel investor. We talked to him about that. That's interesting in its own right. But he's an example of an investor who found a technology and loved it so much, he bought the company. And this company has got some remarkable, interesting intellectual property, but rather than just becoming a patent troll, he built solutions around that. And his approach to monetizing IP, again, on its own, is worth listening to. It's an important subject for any entrepreneur to understand how IP works in high tech. And I think you'll see another dimension of that. But really the core of what we get to is how harvesting kinetic energy can work, the kind of applications it unlocks, what it's good for and what it's not good for. So enjoy this discussion with Larry. Well, Larry, welcome to the Mr. Beacon podcast. It's a real pleasure to have you.
Pleasure to be here, Steve. Thanks for having me.
I am really looking forward to talking to you because I want to learn a bit more about the aspect of energy harvesting that you focused on. I've been living harvesting from radio waves for the best part of a decade, but the whole sort of electromechanical kinetic energy thing is a mystery to me, and it has its place. So I think this will be a great opportunity for everyone to learn what you do, but what it's useful for, what it's not useful for, what's the state of the market, where it's headed. But why don't you kick things off? Just give an intro to WePower and get us up to speed on your kind of elevator summary of what you do.
Sure. WePower Technologies was founded in July 2019 after I acquired through a bankruptcy a portfolio of patents in energy harvesting. As an angel investor, I sold my last company in 2005 and stayed a couple of years. That was Unwired Technology. And I was looking for something to do and really didn't see anything. So I started investing in early stage companies. I became an active angel investor. And then around early 2019, someone came to me and said, there's a company in trouble that's doing energy harvesting. And I said, what's energy harvesting? So he said, well, they don't need batteries and they can send transmissions. And I said, wow, that sounds really cool. I'd be interested in that. So I met with the inventor, who was kind of a crazy guy, brilliant in some ways, But the first thing he showed me, he took me into his garage. Before he showed me the product, he showed me a Ferrari and an Aston Martin. I'm a car guy, so, I knew what those cars are worth. And I know he was renting his house, so just everything didn't make sense. And he was really out of money. I mean, they had burned $2 million in cash trying to build this stuff up and really hadn't gone very far. So I tried to invest in the company, and he basically told me to go to hell. He didn't like the fact that I didn't want to pay him as much as he wanted. And I said I would pay his rent because I didn't think he'd be in that house very long. And he laughed at me. And 6 months later, I got a call because I stopped communicating with him. And someone said, "Are you still interested in the technology?" I said, "Yeah, but, this guy's hard to work with." He said, "Well, he doesn't have the technology anymore. It's in the bankruptcy courts." So, I feel bad, but he was so bad to work with. So I said, okay. And I ultimately got a law firm to look at the patents. And because of the fact that, if you want to have a really good review on a patent portfolio, you can spend hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I didn't want to do that. So what I did instead was I went to a major law firm and I said, why don't you look at this? I knew the managing director. I was fortunate for that. And they looked at the patents and they said, "This is pretty interesting." And I offered them 10% of the company if they didn't show me a bill for the next 3 years. And they did a little more digging and they agreed to do it. So from that standpoint, that was my due diligence on the patents. If they were willing to work for nothing for 3 years and to own 10% of the company, I said, okay, I'm convinced now. So that's good. So we acquired the patents through the bankruptcy court in July 19. And I actually hired the inventor, and he couldn't have a bank account. So I have to drop off a box of cash to him every month. And the last time I dropped off the cash, actually, he had gotten an account and he said I could wire the money. And I wired him this money, and it was a lot of money. And the next day he quit. And the reason is because I told him that we need an engineer. And I realized that he was looking at this as a science project. I look at this as a business, and there's a great technology that needs to get off the workbench and into people's hands. So he agreed we needed engineering. And when I found an engineer, Mike Riddell, who has been with us for 5.5 years and is our senior VP of engineering, this guy started talking to him. We had lunch. And I knew he was really uptight because he saw this guy really knows what he's doing. And to develop product takes engineering, not just a good physicist, right? And you can invent something, but to really, make it. We actually tested the first product that he had built. And after 200 activations, the unit failed and actually smashed apart. The plastic cracked, everything.
So this was the original product that you inherited, right?
Right. So what was a push button? It was an industrial push button that when you push it would generate energy. Now, he didn't have, what was interesting, I always thought, if you've talked to enough entrepreneurs, we're a kind of optimistic group that put the risks kind of in the back and just think about all the rosy future that we could have. And that's what I did. I figured I'd take these little generators, connect them to a transmitter circuit, and I'm done. I mean, I'm in business. People are going to love us. Well, Mike obviously knew that wasn't the case. And he says, "No, Larry, you don't have an extraction circuit." I said, "Oh, yeah, you need to extract this energy from the energy harvesting generator, REHGs, and you need to regulate it and put it into a bunch of capacitors ready to be used." Okay, I knew capacitors. That makes sense. Well, I didn't know it was going to take 2.5 years to design that circuit and really optimize it. I mean, it was, and also at the same time, update all the energy harvesting devices. They had 2. We now have 3. I bought originally, I think, 5 or 6 patents. We now have 16 with another 30 outstanding at this point. So we've done an enormous amount of work. And that device that broke after 200 activations, we've now tested to 1.3 million activations. And I can tell you there is zero degradation after 1.3 million activations. So we have really a permanent long-term solution for energy harvesting that will be robust, put out energy that's never been put out before. I'm talking not microjoules as one of our famous competitors has been putting out for many years, but millijoules. So, 30, 40 times the amount of energy. But even more important is the duration of our energy. That other company has a click and it's over. It's over in microseconds. We deliver energy for 100 times that amount. So we're in the 200 millisecond, 300, 400 millisecond period of time. So during that period, we can send not 2 messages with 2 pieces of data in it. We can send 30 messages. We just tested one of our new devices, which is going to be a water sensor built for the home assistant market. And right now, based on our energy harvesting, we've got this production piece or pilot run piece that we've been testing. We're getting 30 messages out in a single activation. That's unheard of.
So that, in practical terms, what that means, what does that mean in practical terms? Why maybe I only need 1 message? Why would I need 30 messages?
Well, you don't need 30, but 1 is never going to be enough. The odds are if you say 8 out of 10 or 9 out of 10 that they're going to get the message, then you have to start looking at, you need multiple messages.
Yes.
The other thing is the data, the amount of data in there is very important. And because if you don't have enough energy, you can't read sensors. So we have a device, that push button I told you about, where we've done, we've shown it at CES. And what we can do with a single activation push is we can wake up a microprocessor. We can read 3 different sensors. We have a non-volatile memory sensor that collects how many times during the lifetime of the product it's been activated. We have an XYZ axis mercury sensor that's giving us the XYZ coordinates of how we're holding the device. And we're getting a temperature and barometric pressure sensor that's being activated. So we wake up the microprocessor, read 3 different sensors. We transmit that into 128-bit encryption into a Nordic chip, standard Nordic Bluetooth chip, and transmit at 8 dBm, 30 messages or 25 messages.
That's a strong signal.
A battery at all. Right. That's the point. Nobody in the world can do that without a battery. And I'm not transmitting power to this. It's just, you push it once and it's done.
And just to support what you're saying, the dream of these battery-free sensors is you can put them under the sink and they'll last for years. And then that one time when the pipe bursts or the coupling comes unloose, it will work. And if you're just broadcasting once or twice, the receivers, like the receiver on your Amazon Echo, it's probably listening, because very often the radio that transmits, the Bluetooth radio that transmits, is also the Bluetooth radio that listens. So some of the time it's transmitting, some of the time it's listening. And so maybe that thing's only listening for a third of the time. And so if you broadcast 3 times, maybe 2 of the 3 times it doesn't get through and the third one does. And so that's why that is important. It's reliability, and people aren't going to want to buy a bunch of moisture sensors that don't work when the time comes. And what you've also articulated is part of it with these things. It's not just send the message, it's wake the thing up so that it's ready to listen. It's a bit like a human being. It's like, wake up. You wait for them to wake up and then you talk to them. And so, to me, all of this sounds like you've got success in this energy harvesting game is all about the margins. If you could sort of make products successful based on the ideal optimal situation, it would be great. But we all know that real life is messy. Physical environments always worse than you hope. And so you have to have 3 times the power and the time and everything for it actually to work. And what I'm hearing from you is that that's what you have achieved in this domain of harvesting, just someone pushing a button and getting enough energy that you can turn a light on. So how do you tell us how the water moisture sensor works? Because I saw your demo and I thought it was really cool, because I think we can all understand or appreciate, there's some energy going into pressing the light switch, but where's the energy in, some moisture penetrating a moisture sensor?
That's a good question. It's preloaded. So if you took 2 magnets and put them in your hand, what would happen? they would attract to each other, right? They may
Yeah.
flip around inside, but basically they'll be attached. And if you pulled them apart and flipped them over and held them in your hand the same way, they would be repelling each other, right?
Mm.
If you ask a physicist and you put those two little magnets that are repelling in a box and they'd be pressing against each other, the magnetic flux would be pushing against each other, and you ask a physicist, how long will that last? The answer is basically forever. So while that unit is pushing like that, and what we do is we wrap a piece of paper around the device that has a button that's pushing up with a spring. And when that spring is able to push through, which only happens when the paper is degraded in a way by getting wet and becomes weak, it allows that thing to push up and it releases those magnets. And it's a little bit simplistic what I'm saying with the two repelling. There's 7 magnets in there, but we created a flux where it has that pressure and it's preloaded. And the second that thing gets wet and the paper breaks, it releases those magnets to open or to move in a copper coil and give sufficient energy. We're talking here millijoules, in that particular device, we're talking over 4 millijoules of energy net going into the transmitter to transmit the signal to tell, that there's a leak.
Very good. And how much does this all cost? Because I want one.
Okay, well, it's suggested retail on the, thank you. The suggested retail on the Home Assistant version, which will be out early first quarter, as soon as I can get it out, will be $79.99 retail.
Okay.
And we do think once volumes go up that the price can come down a bit, but we think for a device that's as reliable as that, and again, you can use that thing 100,000 times, so no one's ever going to use it up. But it's completely reusable. Just put a new piece of paper around it, and we have a magnet tray that allows you to take those magnets and put them in that repelling position and just lay it down, and it's ready to go again.
Okay. And so we need to get the summary of what the products are, but one of them is a light switch, right? Is that the correct?
Yes. So
how much do they cost?
Again, we haven't determined that. My business model is a little different. In all my businesses, I've always had a kind of a twist on the business model. And this one is similar in that we are a licensing company.
Mm-hmm.
And I have been talking to companies for the last, probably 4 years, 3 years since we've really been ready with everything working. And of course, more has been done since then, but I thought we were ready then. And so we started talking to people about licensing. And I found that really smart people sometimes don't have an imagination to what we were trying to do. So we decided to create a reference product. And the water sensor was something that really caught a lot of people's imagination. It's taken a while to get it through because we're also working on a Z-Wave version, which will be out late first quarter, early second quarter of 26. But that's taken longer. And the light switch was something that everybody, and especially when, Europe has outlawed batteries that aren't user changeable in August 27. So that opened up the market to us. And we're talking to a lot of lighting companies now about a custom controller. And our controller will be an on-off with a potentiometer we can do scenes or dimming. We could actually, because we have so much energy, we could do 2 potentiometers. One for scenes, one for dimming, for example.
So what is I just have the on off up down dimming. What's the scenes thing that you're talking about there?
Well, I understand that there's some high-end lighting things where they do scenes where they have all the lights separate, set at different, and
I get it.
There could be colors even and stuff, so that's on some systems today, like the hue and things like that. So anyway, I understand that that's something that some people may want. We can do that. Right now, the unit we're going to show at CES in January, which will be our introduction of the new light controller, which is iterated from the very thick, not so great unit we showed last CES show.
Yeah.
So now we really have something ready for the lighting industry, and we're talking to major lighting companies at this point.
Okay, so you mentioned the twist on the business model because, and I'm assuming what you're referencing is standard IP licensing. Someone buys up some patents and they become, the nasty word is patent troll. They go around and they phone up people who have already got a business doing this thing, saying, we're going to send you a cease and desist or send us a check for half your revenue. And you're not doing that. Explain why you're not doing that.
Yeah, no, actually, I've been involved in CTA, the Consumer Technology Association, which owns CES. I've been involved there for many, many years in different roles. So patent trolls are like, get them away. We don't want them. We are not a patent troll. I bought, like I said, 5 or 6 patents. We now have 16, and we're going to have another 30 coming. We've developed this technology, and we're not out to sue people. What we're out to do is license our technology. And we are not like a technology licensing firm which says, here, you can read the patent and figure it out. We're very much a hands-on turnkey licensor because we want those products to meet the specs. We cannot afford to have any of our products out there where they're not doing exactly what they're supposed to do. So we're going to work very carefully, and our license agreements require that we approve the product before it goes out, because we want to make sure that our brand name for our energy harvesting technology is GEMS, GEMNS, which is probably going to be the name of the company eventually. But that's really critical to us to build that image and reputation for our products, that when there's a GEMS underneath or GEMS inside, as Intel did it, that means it's going to work, and there's no issue whatsoever. So, I understand the position of patent trolls, and while we are a licensor, our business and a patent trolls business are completely different.
Yeah, well, that's great to hear. And so are you looking to have some kind of ingredient branding, or are you happy to sit behind the scenes?
I am happy to sit behind the scenes with GEMS.
Yeah.
And we will have GEMS will be on every product because we need our patents to be labeled. You need patent information on a product to maintain your patents. So, whether it's XYZ Corporation or this one, all the major brands that you might think of in, home automation, smart buildings, are all potential customers and would put their name on it. But still, on the bottom of the unit somewhere, there'll be a gems.com with our patent location, put a list of patents. You have to do that. And that'll be our branding. But we're not out to build a brand.
Okay. Interesting.
Except for in B2B, I guess,
Yeah, of course, that's standard. So, but, the difference between having the Intel inside on the sticker on the or the Qualcomm Snapdragon sticker on the box versus having patent attribution etched into the underside of the product. I guess that's what we're talking about.
Well, I would still we'll see how we do when we start, when we sign up final agreements with some of these people that we're working with. But, I would like to have GEMS shown somewhere on the packaging, because I think it's important.
On the packaging. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad.
But it would be a minor thing, like, when you buy a Dell computer, the Intel inside is a secondary brand to it, right?
Yeah. So we are talking about ingredient brand because I worked at Qualcomm when they did they used to have Qualcomm Stadium here in San Diego, and now it's Snapdragon Stadium because Snapdragon is the ingredient branding that they want, and that. I know that can be super challenging. So I think it'll be interesting to see how that goes. And I have wanted to do that myself in past companies that I've worked at. So I'm rooting for you, but I know that it's kind of
Thank you.
hard.
Yeah, no, the branding is hard, but I think, again, the people we're dealing with, primarily engineering groups and innovation officers in major corporations, they're not going to be too concerned about this. They look at their brand as being what's most important, and people are buying the product because this one or that one, major brands are producing it.
So let's just round out the story in terms of the products that are in the portfolio today. So there's the moisture detector and there's the light switch, and I think you mentioned
light controller.
More.
Yeah, we have actually the real line. Again, because I look at us as kind of a component manufacturer. Our supplier, in a sense, in quotes, supplier. So we have three different energy harvesting devices. We have a G100, a G200, and a G300. The 100 is that push button I talked about, where we've now achieved over 1.3 million activations with no degradation. The G200 is our most powerful device, which is in the water sensor, and is also an interesting device because it's dual polarity. So we actually know which way the unit is being activated. So we have shown this product in a door monitor, where we can tell if the door is being opened or closed based on the way it's moving. And this has been, there's some interest in the door and lock markets for this kind of a technology. And so we've developed that. And again, we're just showing use cases. I mean, there are hundreds of use cases for our technology.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many applications for this kind of a technology with three different switches that, again, one is a push button, one is a slide or a turn, the other one is a slide, but with less pressure, which is we're going to be using in the lighting industry. So each of these generators has its own applications, and they scale, which is interesting. I mean, so if I make a device that's 1 inch by a 1/4 inch in depth, 1 inch round, it's going to put out X amount of energy. If I make it triple the size, it may fit into someone else's product, and it's going to be harder to activate, but it's going to put out a lot more energy. So
Yeah.
these things really scale. And I've talked to the companies where at applications where they needed like a 20-foot range, and they don't need a big signal. It's just an on-off kind of a situation. Well, I can shrink the device then and lower cost and make it easier to package it into their product.
Okay.
So these scale. The other part of our line, which is important, besides the three energy harvesting generators, is a line of different harvesting circuits. So we have different cost circuits if we need different efficiencies. The higher the efficiency and the more need for energy would require maybe a more expensive circuit. We have a very simple circuit that we use in a number of different applications that we've been demoing and talking to potential customers about. But so that's really the line: 3 generators and a group of circuits to extract and hold the power from those generators.
And for all of these, you have a reference design and you have an engineering organization that can work with
Yep.
OEMs that are implementing it. So,
Absolutely.
with IP, it's about novelty and it not being obvious. So what is it that you're doing that is novel and not obvious? You've kind of described some of the applications, and basically, my summary is sort of more power in a compact profile. But because you're not the first people to use electromechanical kinetic energy as a source for lighting controllers. What's different here?
Well, what's different here is the power output and the robustness of the signal.
Right,
I
right,
mean,
right.
that's really critical, I think,
Yeah. But what is it? How do you achieve that results? What's the nature of the method?
Yeah, and that's what really got me excited when I first saw the first device, which was our G200, which is that one where I said it's got 7 magnets, and it's really got 6 magnets around a generator magnet that does all the generating within a coil. And I guess what I know what you're looking for, and the answer is that our magnets oscillate within the coil. So when you look at other people's, it's a click, and that's it.
Yeah.
There's nothing going else on. What we're doing is if you drop one magnet, another magnet, another magnet, another magnet, keep dropping them through the coil, you're going to keep getting energy. And what we've done is we've taken one magnet that can operate as many magnets, and we get it to oscillate within the coil so that it extends the amount of energy and the duration of the energy output.
Okay. And in my simple brain, what I'm thinking is you have a limited amount of travel, a limited amount of movement, and you're trying to extract the most energy, and you're sort of essentially extending what happens with essentially with multiple magnets to get a bit more energy out of that movement. Is that vaguely along the lines of what
Kind
you've
of, yeah,
done?
but it's really the movement of the magnet within the coil. That it's not just a magnet in a coil. We get it to move in a certain way, and that's where our patents come in. And it's really rather novel. It really is.
Okay.
And everything I've seen, listen, some of this stuff that's called energy harvesting, I call energy transmissions. If you're sending a signal to a device that's going to read or is going to receive a RF signal that includes power,
Yeah.
that's a transmission, right?
Yeah.
I mean, true energy harvesting. And again, I mean, when you think of solar, which is obviously the most popular of them, I mean, and that's really where our extraction circuit becomes so important. Because if you look at most applications today for uh, energy coming in on these devices, it's solar and it's RF, and RF even less, it's less energy than solar. But what happens is if the sun comes up, or wind is another one, right? The sun comes up or it gets windy, you don't care if you miss the first second of generation of energy because you got 8, 9 hours more sun, right? When you have our device, we've got a couple hundred milliseconds of energy coming out of there.
Mm.
So if you don't get that very first hit of energy, you're missing our biggest output, right? Because it's a
Yes.
declining curve. So the circuit has to wake up before, but like when we're thinking of activating it, that's how
Yeah.
you really want it, right?
Yeah.
And that's tricky, and it's something that we've developed. And when we've talked to chip companies, we've talked about, like, don't tell us you got 100 millisecond wake up time, because basically you're taking half our energy waking up.
Yeah.
So we talked to Silicon Labs a few years ago when they first saw our technology, and I don't know if they'd admit that, but I would say that we're kind of responsible for their new chip where they got a 10 millisecond wake up time. Perfect
Right.
for us,
Right.
So that's where, and I think you're going to see more and more stuff like that coming out.
So you've sort of, the good news is what you're doing is novel. The bad news is because it's novel, you have to convince people that it will work and show them how it works. So, that I think makes you one of the good guys, as opposed to someone that's saying, yeah, what you've been doing for the last 10 years, I invented it 11 years ago. And it's like, okay, that's just parasitical. But what you're doing is saying, we've got a better mousetrap, change the design, license it. It's a little bit like the Qualcomm model. It's like, we can make 5G work and you don't know how to. Here's a reference design, a reference phone. And, I would put them in the good guys of technology. I'm biased. I used to work there. But
Yeah, I
that's
think they are.
probably, yeah, the most successful technology licensing business that I've ever come across. Is phenomenal. And I think, many reasons for that. They have a basket of IP. You don't just license a patent, you license the basket, and it's an evergreen basket. So that was brilliant. That was basically a lawyer that thought of that. But then you've got all these engineers, and they're thinking about new modulations that initially it was tough for them getting people to use what was at the time called CDMA. Everyone was using GSM, and they're like, we've got a better mousetrap, and the buyers are like, we don't care, we've already got GSM, it seems to be good enough. And it seems like you're sort of similar. You've got a better mousetrap. There's some challenges in selling that, but hopefully for you can convince them that the extra time, the extra energy, the extra kinetic movement that you can generate and harvest is worth it. So what do you think? So we've talked about some of the immediate applications, and I know, when we were doing our work on my current business, Ambient Chat, there's like, well, here's what we think we can do today, but in the future we could do this, and the future is always harder, but it's also better. So what are your thoughts on where this could lead to?
It's a good question. And yeah, I definitely think about that because I look at this as a long-term business, which Actually, my whole goal here is to give the money away to charity. Half of everything I
Ah,
earn here is going to charity.
very
You know,
nice.
I'm a little older. I've had some successes, and that's what I want to do with this. But I think what you're saying is important from the standpoint of where we're going with this. And there's a couple of things. First of all, I told you we have a number of different circuits. My goal is to take those circuits and put them into an ASIC, an application-specific integrated circuit, where we could take a $12, $10 bomb on our most expensive extraction circuit and harvesting circuit, and reduce it to, a $2 ASIC, which would really promote the technology and allow us to really promote the technology in a bigger way. So that's one of the more immediate goals. But going forward, I see that there's not going to be one energy harvesting solution. There are going to be many. And when I look at RF and solar, I see them as complementing what we're doing. And in the future, I would expect that certain products will have a solar, ambient light collector, and using that to power maybe a battery in there, or something where they have a very low amount of draw. But I've learned more. Listen, I'm not an engineer, but I've learned a lot about batteries in the last few years. And interestingly, these coin cells particularly, but all batteries, they don't like to be drawn on too hard. So, if you give a coin cell a very small draw and you take that draw every day forever, it's going to last a lot longer than if in between you ask this intermittent spike of energy that needs to now read a bunch of microprocessors, or open up a microprocessor, read sensors, and then transmit a strong signal. That just kills the battery. So when you talk about 5-year lives and everyone's saying, well, why do I only get a year? That's why you only get a year, because they're not really meant to use that way. So in the future, I see, where we would have a solar application that would come in and provide, like, if you like picture a remote control, for example, you pick it up, wakes up, you use the power from the rechargeable battery that's been recharged continuously through the ambient solar unit. But then when you need to send a strong signal to, say, turn on the TV, or, change channels or something, then our device would come in and would be completely an independent power source. Again, no battery. That would work perfectly in concert with the solar RF collection. So I think that's where we see things going. And, we have a roadmap, and we're going to stick with it. And, I see scaling as part of this. I mean, we've had some people in from the US government to our booth at CES, and, they see these transmissions in millijoules transmitting, up to half a mile or whatever. But, what about a soldier who's out in the desert and got lost, and now he needs to tell someone that where he is? Well, we could take one of those, we could take our unit and make them step on it. Now, again, it's going to be a lot more force. They may be, 30 pounds, 40 pounds of force. But now I can send a signal to a satellite up there and tell exactly where John is. So that's where I see things happening. And there's applications where chips are becoming more efficient. So 5G you talked about, I look at, like, smart cities, smart roads. You're out in your car and you're in a windy road up in the hills somewhere where there's hardly any thing going on. You hit a barrier. Wouldn't it be nice if the barrier was a smart barrier and had one of our sensors in there, so that now when that barrier was hit, we took that energy, we used it to transmit a 5G signal up and say, hey, there's been an accident at protection number so and so, and everyone know what that is, and they could go over there and see what happened. Do they have to replace the barrier? Is there somebody that fell over a cliff?
Ah,
What's going
yeah,
on?
yeah. I love that idea, because if you think about the harsh conditions that a barrier goes under, I mean, the temperature fluctuations would just kill a battery, and you certainly don't want to have wired barriers. So it's a perfect application. I love it.
Yeah, so I mean, there's all kinds of smart city kind of applications like that,
Hmm. Yeah.
and any kind of controller in the future. I mean, we've talked to people where, the electric doors for the hospitals, they use those remote controls. Well, a lot of them today are being requested to put them for wheelchair compatibility. where they stand up from they move them off the wall and they put a little metal stand up where they've got the push button. Now, what do? You got to drill a hole in the ground, run a wire, and put that up there, or you use a battery. And I can tell you that battery operated push buttons for doors in hospitals are not the best thing when someone needs to get into a room quickly and they can't get through the door. So,
Well, and it's just the cost. It's not just the there's kind of compliance to maintenance regimes so that so you get reliable service, but it's also just that's been the thing that's held Bluetooth beacons back. It's okay, I need to replace the batteries every 4 years, but that is such a massive cost and so problematic. And
so, they really don't last that long either.
Yeah.
The other thing is, I mean, for example, another example is hotels. We look at blinds and drapes that are electric drapes and shutters in a lot of nicer hotels. And if you have 100-room hotel, you got 100 remote controls lying around that are in different states of needing batteries. And there's in a lot of these hotels today, there's one person who's responsible for changing smart battery, the doors and remote control batteries in a hotel. Now, we could do this where, it would be there for the next 50 years and never need a battery change.
Yeah, that's a great market if you can get into it, because these hotels are all, it's a template, isn't it? Everything is the same. You go to a Hilton anywhere around the world, you're going to get the same shampoo. You're going to get the same bath mat. It's so
That's right.
If you can crack it, and they're looking at costs in a very scientific way. So it sounds like also this would be great for anyone that's listening, that's an entrepreneur that feels like they want to build a solution. You're kind of giving them some new capabilities, opportunity space. You're going to need people like that to jump on this and build the stack on top of what you are talking about. I want to move on and talk a little bit about your past. I think we're running pretty low on time, but I just wanted to ask you about your angel investing in the past. So, but before we do that, is there anything else that we haven't covered on GEMS and WePower, that your core business, that you want to get out?
No, I think we're ready now. Now's the time. We're talking to real licensees about real programs that are going to start in 26, and so it's taken longer than we thought. It's been more challenging than I had expected.
Yeah,
but most things that really worthwhile turn out to be like that. So it's okay.
Yeah. It's always the way, isn't it? I mean, with Willie, I was convinced 5 years we'd all be on a beach, and they just had the Walmart announcement, and but that was like 8 hard years to get to that, and this is really, just the start of the journey of scaling that technology. It's going to be another couple of years before it really starts to become hopefully ubiquitous. And so these things do take time, but hopefully this ecosystem can help each other. The idea of getting rid of batteries, I'm hoping, is a viral design pattern that takes off. So when it's really interesting that you've become, poacher turned gamekeeper, or maybe it's the other, gamekeeper turned poacher, in that you're, you were a VC and then you went back to being an angel investor. And then you went back to being, running the business that typically someone might invest in, but you've invested in it. When you were an angel investor, how much would you be investing typically? What does that market look like in terms of, and where did you fit into that?
Well, I joined a group. When I sold Unwired the first time, the headphone company, I had started this headphone company and it was very successful. We were the only I would say we were the only tier 1 supplier in the world with 11 employees. We were tier 1 to General Motors and Ford, and tier 2, we had 82% of the world market in headphones and cars. So when I sold that, it was a fortunate situation, and I didn't know what to do, and I started looking at opportunities. They had made me sign a 4-year agreement, but 2 months after I sold the company, Katrina hit, and Hurricane Katrina put a big crimp in gas prices. The prices went to $5 a gallon. You couldn't give away SUVs and minivans, and that was where all my headphones were. So it was a tough time, and I had just sold a majority interest to a private equity company. They weren't too happy with me. So I left after a year and a half, and what am I going to do? And I started looking at this idea of being an angel investor, and I joined a group in New York called the New York Angels. I was fortunate that I did that because I think for a lot of angel investors, going out and investing by yourself and doing your own due diligence, unless you have the money to really pay for a group of people to do the due diligence, and it's very difficult. So by joining a really good group, and I mean, being in New York or in LA, it makes it easier to find these groups. You're in a much better position because, we had at the time I joined, I think there were 45 members of New York Angels. Today it's like 145. But there's always somebody that knows the industry that somebody's pitching you on, or knows somebody where they can get more information. So the due diligence becomes much better. And it worked out very nicely. But answering your question, the typical bet, and I call it a $25 chip, was $25,000. So, I invested in over 85 companies through that, mostly through New York Angels, although there were other avenues to finding deals. But then what happens is some of the deals, they need more money. You don't want to put so much in because you might need to up again. So there are deals where, I started with 25 and I'm up to 150 now because they keep having, rounds and they seem to be doing successful business. So you keep supporting them. So it really depends on the company, I guess, in a sense as well.
Yeah, so you're putting 25 in, but are you doing that with three other people? So it's actually 100K rather
Oh,
than
yeah. Oh,
25K?
no. I do it with 20 other people or 10 other people. Oh, yeah. No, I mean, the typical check that, a founder could get out of New York Angel starts at $250,000. I mean, and
Yeah.
goes up to, we finance companies to the tune of a couple $1,000,000 on a single round. Because, there are some people in the group that'll say, hey, I really want this. And they forget the 25,000, they put down 300,000 or something, because it's in their space and they really love the company.
Interesting. And what stage are these angel groups typically investing in? Is it seed? Is it's presumably not late
Yes.
stage? Yeah.
No.
Early.
It really is the seed stage that I think the angel groups have been pursuing mostly. I think today there's real opportunities in later stage, and I'm looking at some of that. But right now, I'm financing this one all myself, and I have for the
Yeah.
last 6 years. So I've pulled back a little bit on my early stage investing and putting it
And
all in a company that I'm controlling.
so, and what are the hazards of that early stage? I mean, the math says it's just going to be higher risk. You've got a funnel, and more people drop out.
Oh yeah.
So, um, aren't you? So presumably higher risk, higher reward. But is it higher reward because you're getting diluted potentially by all of the people in the A round, the B round, the C round? Why do it?
Well, I think you're right about that. And that's one of the reasons why I find sometimes angel investing very frustrating. I've told a lot of people about angel investing that the one thing you'll guaranteed of that you'll find they have a new way to screw you every time. And that's typically from the VCs because, the later stage guys will come in. There'll be a bunch of angels come in. Oh, we love this at New York Angels. And now they need, 10 million and they're going for the VC round. And the VC, first thing they want to do is get rid of us. Like, can't we dilute them more? Can we? Because again, it's they're looking out for themselves, not for us. So I found that the best deal I ever invested in was a deal where the guy promised us that if he does this round, he will never need another penny. And those are the ones that you really want. Now, even if they don't meet that, but there are some, it's still, if they go for a second round, it still could be okay. But I see many companies coming in, and those are usually the medical companies or, where they need approvals and where we're going to do a seed round now, but, there's going to be a D round someday too. and you're getting in on this thing, and you know you're going to be diluted unless you keep putting in. And I hate those. Personally, I don't like investing in those deals.
Yeah.
I really like people who say they're going to try and do it all on one round, because if they do it, that's where the real opportunity is.
That totally makes sense from the angel's perspective. And to me, it totally makes sense from the CEO's perspective, because, how many CEOs do you know that had an E round, and now basically their ordinary shares are worth nothing, and they've,
Right.
I know so many people, and that, like, you see their company being bought, and you're like, congratulations, and they're like, yeah, well, yeah, and you know that they didn't get anything out of it, and these are the people that worked so hard for so long, and so to me, finding a business, I mean, it's easy to say, but finding a business model where you can generate enough cash that you're not, I don't think closing a big round that's not something certainly that I aspire to. Maybe it's because I'm old and crusty. I want autonomy, and I don't want to have a boss, and I certainly don't want to have
I'm with
15
you on that.
bosses.
Exactly. So, I think that's something where, I call it breaking the egg. And, I've talked to entrepreneurs about that and said, wait as long as you can, because, if you have a company and you found it and it's coming along, the longer you last and the more traction you can demonstrate, the higher the valuation and the less dilution you're going to experience. And, where you get to a situation where you're a founder and you're going to be in a position where you're working for the company and you're no longer in control. I mean, you're done. You're at the whim of the board, and the VCs that control it.
Yeah.
So I would recommend that people wait as long as they can to raise money.
Yes.
And I'm certainly one that has pursued that. I have not raised any money and been using my personal funds for the last 6 years, but I'm thinking about it now.
Well, the thing I was going to say was, the great thing is that AI is, I think, a wonderful thing for entrepreneurs doing that. And I've talked about it before on this podcast, but I haven't done any development or coding for over 30 years, but I've been playing with these AI software development tools, these IDEs, and it is phenomenal. And this week has been incredible. I've been using this tool called Cursor. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's one of the big AI development tools. And I was just blown away with what you could do with that. But, as someone that's managed people, I actually think that your ability to use these tools directly correlates to your management skills, because these AIs, they behave very much in terms of their management. It seems remarkably like managing a person. And I feel like with Cursor, I've been managing this graduate who's unconsciously incompetent. They're like full of hubris. I can do this. And when it goes wrong, they never want to tell you. And they're like, it's fine. And it isn't fine. And you're like, if you just told me, we could have, it's like managing a graduate, and you're like,
no, I actually get it, Steve. I feel that my chat GP is like my kiss up employee. Like,
yes.
Don't tell me how smart I am. Tell me how stupid I am and why I'm doing it wrong. Don't tell me I'm doing everything right.
Exactly.
So I'm with you on that.
But I want to pass on this thing that anyone else that is using AI for development. I just switched to OpenAI Codex, and basically, I listened to another podcast where Andre Karpathy, I'm probably massacring his name, but one of the early founders of OpenAI was saying, he was basically, I like this, he was bad-mouthing AI and saying why it's really not as good as everyone thinks it is, and it's going to be years before we get to AGI. But he was saying how he still likes to do the coding, and but he said, but the best thing that he's found is OpenAI's Codex with, you can pay, you can either get these things for free or $20, but there's a $200 a month subscription. And he's like, if you use GPT-5 Pro, that is the best that you, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to give this a try. I gave it a try, and it's amazing. My graduate programmer, I've now got someone that's got 15 years experience, and it's just a transformation, and there's less of the euphoric stuff, and it's just the facts, and they're like standing back and saying, we need to refactor this code, I mean, to me, I am getting so much joy just looking. You hire someone, I'm sure you've had this. If you hire someone who's not good, it's a nightmare. It's like stressful for you and stressful for them. But there's probably people you've hired in the past who you thought, this is just a great employee, and it's a joy. You see them, and that's what I feel about GPT-5 Pro working in Codex. So if anyone else is doing development, go for that. That's my tip of the week.
Well, I know you're into music. I see you got a nice pair of speakers back there.
Thank you. Yeah.
And I know the question, there's going to be a question about music. You're talking to a guy who has loved music. I'm 72, and 69 years ago, I sent my father out for my first rock and roll record, which was Hound Dog by Elvis Presley. And when I looked many years later at my 45 collection, I realized that at 3, 4, 5, 6, I was buying all the coolest music. About Haley and the Comets, Richie Valens. I mean, all that old stuff. And so for the last 69 years, since I bought that record at 3 years old, I have never stopped buying music from rock and roll. So, when the 90s came, I loved Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Alice in Chains, all those, and today, I mean, actually, I think Cage the Elephant is probably one of the greatest groups that's been around in a while. And so I'm completely current, and talk all the way back. So you can imagine finding 3 songs that are important to me. It's like,
so do you have a lot of vinyl then, or have you switched to the cloud?
I did. It was something where when I had my really last great audio system, and as you get older, you can't even hear some of the highs and everything. But I knew Mo from Monitor Audio. I was introduced to him many years ago, and he sent me a pair of speakers that he made for me, like the big Monitor Studio ones, but with the metal drivers and everything. But he had fixed it up for me, and I had monoblock amps and everything. I mean, I really had a system. But today I still have Monitor Audio systems, but I don't pursue the super high-end stuff because I don't think I need it anymore.
So how do you consume your music? Do you use Spotify, or what's your?
I have Spotify. I also have like 3,000-4,000 songs on my hard drive here in my computer.
Right.
So so I carry a long list. I have like my top hits, or my top songs is like a 9-hour playlist where I just check 4 and 5 stars for all the Apple songs in the Apple list. So
all right.
I mean, I can talk music on any level for any time of the period in the last, like I said, almost 70 years.
Well, this is dangerous. We could end up losing ourselves in
Yeah,
that.
I know.
But I will try and focus my question about 3 songs, presumably from that very long list, that have specific meaning for you. The songs that we like,
I did think
and
about
then the
it.
songs that we have meaning because of the time or whatever. So, what was your first song?
In My Room by the Beach Boys, because as a sad boy growing up, when I heard that song, it was like, oh my God, that's me.
Yeah.
Close the door to my room, and I'm in my room, and I can do whatever I want, and the world is, not bothering me. So that was like my first escapist song.
That was such a great. That was a great song, and it just you mentioning it literally sent shivers down my spine. It's like, oh my God, that's such a great song.
It was, right? I mean,
yeah.
God Only Knows is another great one, but
of course.
In My Room really had meaning personally, And when I first listened to Led Zeppelin's first album, I was 15. I was laying on the floor in my friend's room, and Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You came on. And wow, like I had never heard anything like that. And I didn't really know much about the blues, but I knew that this was rock infused with blues that even Cream or some of the other earlier groups that did a little of that couldn't do the way they did. And I love that song. And every time it comes on, I'm just like, I can't, it doesn't come on the radio too much, if you can imagine, being a long song. But
it's funny. I never liked Led Zeppelin when I was younger, but now I just love it. I love it.
But when you were younger, they were in their later stuff also, and I
That-
didn't think their
yeah,
later stuff was as good as the first few.
maybe
Although
it was just
Stairway
was a
to
little
Heaven.
heavy for me. I was like
Well,
Elton John and
Elton John's
Paul
first album
McCartney
came
and
out, and that was, to me, one of the greatest albums ever. I mean, if I was going to have to be on an island with, 5 albums, Elton John's first album, and maybe even Tumbleweed Connection, the second one would be, which were really written together but broken up, as you may recall. And
yeah.
great stuff. Yes.
You want an I mean, and his rate of production, they were producing 2 or 3 albums a year, and it was like not just anything. It was Captain Fantastic and Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, and I mean that is just like some incredible thing was going on in his brain, and
Taupin's. I mean, him and
Taupin's.
Taupin were like, what
And
a
the
trio.
band. I mean, the band, they would come in and he
Robbie
would have written
Robertson,
something and yeah.
Actually, Stage Fright is one of my greatest songs also. See the Man with the Stage Fright, or there's so many great songs. The band was great. Yes.
So, okay, so that's 2. And also what's going on at this time? So you're growing up in New York, I assume. You sound like a New Yorker.
I was actually growing up in Southern California. That's where my Beach Boy thing came in. So I'm
Okay.
in New York now, but I was born in Dallas, lived there till I was 5, then moved to California and spent time in Westwood and then Encino. And then we had to move to New York, which I did kicking and screaming.
Yeah. How old were you when you landed in New York?
12.
Okay.
And I got there and I was depressed and upset that I was missing my friends in California. And what song became the biggest hit ever? Or, I mean, at the time it was just huge and it was being played like 10 times an hour, was California Dreamin'. And I'm standing in New York and all the leaves are dry and all the leaves are dry. And then I'm looking at it and it's like, hey, this is me. Like, why am I here? I want to be, I'm dreaming about California. So third song is Positive Vibration by Bob Marley and the Wailers. I remember when I got that first album, that album of theirs, it just completely did something to me. It was, again, like, just a jump to a different sound. And I really loved that reggae. And Positive Vibration just had a thing to me. It just really resonated with me always. So I've always liked reggae. And actually, there's one for you, because I know you're British, and David Bowie must have been someone you liked. I loved Bowie.
Of course.
When Ziggy Stardust came out, that was like the most unbelievable album, But he did one reggae song. And it's actually one of my favorite songs. It's off the Blue Jean album. Don't Look Down. Later on, check it out. Don't Look Down.
I'm going to do
it's
it.
off the Blue Jean album. And I got to tell you, it's one of the greatest. And to hear him do a reggae song, it's very cool.
I mean, he was nothing if not eclectic. He would shift, and he was a chameleon, wasn't he? But also it wasn't just kind of handing over his writing to some producer. I mean, it was him, but he was absorbing, soul or whatever the thing was. That was the amazing thing about him.
He was amazing. And like certain artists that, like, when they become popular and like, okay, this is working, so now I'm going to break it and do something else. He did that, like with his Tin Machine. I remember going to a Music Land. This is an old record chain in the United States, if you remember. And they had events, and I was a vendor. I was selling a musical keyboard, but they invited me, and Tin Machine was there. And I want to tell you, I would never have walked out of a David Bowie concert, but this was, I mean, everyone just laughed. It was just, you couldn't listen to it, and talk about heavy. I mean, he really wanted to turn you off,
I wonder what that was about. I actually have not.
Another Direction.
Yeah, I've watched a lot of documentaries. I've never heard much about Tin Machine. It happened, and I'm like, oh, I don't really like this. This is, but
Yeah, no, not at all.
Well, it's so funny you bring it up because I was driving off to the coast. I'm in San Diego, and I had half an hour in the car. And what did I play? I asked. Actually, that's not true. I was trying out the integration between ChatGPT and Spotify, and there's now a plugin you can do that.
Really?
So you can talk to ChatGPT about music, and then it will work with Spotify and create a playlist. So I asked, my test was David Bowie deep cuts, which there probably is a playlist, that almost certainly is, but I just wanted to see what it did, and it was pretty good.
I'm surprised Don't Look Down wasn't on that one.
Maybe it might
That's
have been. Anyway,
trust me.
Yeah. Very good. Well, there's several threads I want to pursue, but you've got limited time. I want to make sure, but I've really enjoyed this. This is great, Larry. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, Steve. It's really been an enjoyable conversation, and look forward to talking again sometime. Thank you.
So, Larry Richenstein, I loved that conversation. It's a real gift getting to talk to entrepreneurs with so much experience on this show. The other gift has been listening to my album of the week, which is from Depeche Mode, which literally means fast fashion in French. So this is a group that hit the top of the chart, certainly in the UK, back in 1981, and they are still going. And Memento Mori is a great album. It was made in the wake of the death of Andy Fletcher, who was the third member of this group. And this movie is a concert movie, but with poetry and amazing visual art woven into it. And it's called M, and it was shot over 3 days in Mexico City in front of 200,000 fans. And to give you a sense of how accessible and interesting this is, I took my 23-year-old son, Sam, to this, and we both loved it. People were dancing. People were dancing in the cinema. It was just so good. And Depeche Mode is such a great group. The frontman, Dave Gahan, is this consummate performer in the lineage of Mick Jagger, only kind of wearing a lot more black leather. He's legendary because he died for 2 minutes and was brought back to life after some overindulgence, let's put it that way. But Memento Mori sounds morbid. It means remember that you must die in Latin, which of course is true. It's not morbid, even though this is Halloween time. It's really a call to not waste your time, to live deliberately. And so I can't think of a better philosophy or better music. Okay, that's it for this week. Thank you so much for listening, if you have been. And if you haven't been, then you won't be hearing me say this. Thank you to Aaron Hammock for patiently listening to me and my guests longer than probably anyone else in the world and creating such a fine product. Do enjoy the journey. Do join us next time. And do tell your friends about the Mr. Beacon podcast, because we need your help to grow the show. It's fun doing it, and it's even more fun knowing that you're listening or watching. See you next time. Thanks for watching this episode of the Mr. Beacon Ambient IoT podcast. You can also listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Please like and share this video, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss further episodes. For more information about our sponsors, head over to blecon.net, identiv.com, and ambientChat.ai.